I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with
Colored folks, Negroes, African, Black. No matter what name you know them by, their history in Canada is not well known. In this oral history series, you will meet the descendants of African American slaves. You will learn about their lives, their unique communities, their churches, schools, businesses, and their social outlets. Their stories tell of hardships, but also of great successes and triumphs. You will hear about the challenges they faced being a minority in a new land, and how they came to settle Western Canada. These are the men and women who helped found a great nation and gave birth to a new race of Canadians. These are their stories in their words.
I was born Alice Marcella King, September the 17th, 1929, in a little place called Amber Valley, Alberta. And this was an all-black farm community. And I can remember as a kid, my first time in school. No, I'm sorry. Like when I was a kid growing up, I'm the second oldest of 7. And I always had to babysit my younger brothers and sisters. So there was none of us were born in the hospital. And there was a midwife up there, her name was Mrs. Brody. And every time she came to our house, she would leave a baby. This was the way I was thinking in my mind. And I thought, geez, I wish this lady would stop bringing these babies, because I was tired of babysitting and changing diapers. I had to help change the diapers and everything. And so I can remember I was about 5. I don't think I was even in school at that time. And we were used to go and pick blueberries in a horse and buggy. So my mom and her friends, they stopped to visit Mrs. Brody to say hi to her. And I was just a little kid, and I went walking around this lady's house, wondering where she kept all these babies. I found it quite interesting after I grew up. And every time I seen her go somewhere in a wagon, we would be going to school, and we would see Mrs. Brody and one of the farmers up there taking her somewhere. And I used to think, there she goes giving somebody a baby. Oh, God. And when I grew up, I thought that was quite interesting, quite funny, you know.
Who were your parents, their names?
Reese Bowen and Liddell Crothers.
Where were they born?
Oklahoma and Texas. My mother was born in Oklahoma and Dad was born in Texas. And they came to Canada. Gosh, I don't know what year, but they were children when they came to Canada. And I can remember my aunt said that my grandfather had to pitch a tent so they could sleep that night. It was so cold up there. And it was, I think I had an interesting life, though, as a child, even though I had to take care of my younger siblings.
What level of education did you receive?
Well, under the circumstances, I think it was not too bad. But with the Cromwells, I thought I didn't have a good education there because they did not explain to us clearly, and from my way of thinking now, it was hard for me to understand different things, like spelling was hard for me, And math was hard for me. I just didn't understand it. And so when I first started to school, Miss Cromwell, our teacher, I misspelled one word. So whenever we didn't learn our lessons properly, they would give what they give us the strap. Especially me. I don't know if I was just because I was hard to teach anything or what. But anyhow, there was three of us that didn't know how to spell these words. And so she had us stand up in front of her, in front of all the class, and she was going to give us the strap. So the strap was a big wide thing like that and about an inch thick. So she says, hold out your hand. So I held up my hand. Wow! And I snatched my hand back and I says, Mrs. Cromwell, I says, I'm not thinking about you. So I doubled my fist up and I ran away from her, and she was taller than I was, so there was a long bench there. And I stood up on this bench and her and I had a big fight, and the whole class was looking. They were like, oh, Jesus, look at her. She's fighting with the teacher. So after she got the best of me, I admit, but I left the school and I went home to my mom. And Mom didn't make me go back to school, but I never did do it anymore after I, sort of got used to the idea. I learned my math and my spelling better, I guess, so I couldn't get any more lickings.
Who else taught you
Beside
the Cromwells?
The Cromwells? Well, I haven't finished talking about the Cromwells yet. And the old man, oh, God, he was very cruel, I thought. Because if we made any noise, he would make us put our hands out on our desk. And he had a big, long hickory stick, which was about, oh, gosh, I guess it was about 6 feet long. And he would come down on our fingers with this hickory stick. So one time, he made me put my hands out on the desk, and he'd come down with this hickory stick, and if he didn't break the damn stick. And when he broke the stick, he started whipping me across my back. So I resented him all the time after that, which a child would, because I was young, I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I thought that was very cruel. So after they left, a lady named Velma Leffler came to teach out there. And she never whipped or one child in the school. It's just the way she talked to us that made us want to learn and had a purpose for learning in the school. I learned more under that lady, more than I did the whole 4 or 5 years I went to school under Cromwell's, because she just had a way of handling children and she knew what she was doing. And when she left, I actually cried when Miss Leffler left that school, because I was wishing she'd have stayed there longer. But she only taught out there for 1 year. And because of her, a few people out there tried to interfere with her private life, so she left. And then we had another lady come. Her name was Mrs. Dobson. And she was a nice lady. She was good with children. And we got along very good. And then I graduated from grade 8 and went to Athabasca to go to school. And we stayed my sister and I stayed at the Jane Claw Hostel in Athabasca. And I went to school there till I graduated from grade 9. And there was a good teacher there. Her name was Miss Dodd. She was a beautiful teacher. I'll never forget her. And she tried to get me not to leave, so I told her I was going to Edmonton to go to school. And I went home for a year, and by that time I was only, 15? And I stayed home a year, and then I left home and went to Edmonton. I tried to make room for my younger brothers and sisters because it was kind of hard for Mom and Dad to raise us, And so I thought if I go away and work, well, I could help with the family. So I left there and went to Edmonton. My first job was I was working for a doctor and his wife. I won't call their names, but they were nice people. And then I left there. I worked at there was a big hotel in Edmonton called the Royal George. I worked there with my cousin and a friend of ours. We used to wash dishes in the kitchen. And then there was this beautiful black lady. Her name was Hattie Melton, and she opened up a restaurant called the Harlem Chicken Inn. It was just off 96th Street, 96th Street. And we went. I worked for her for about 2 years, and then I met this band leader called Ernie King. He was up there with a band called the Harlem. The Harlem Kings. And he invited me out to a dance. So my friends, we were all working at the Harlem. We all went to this dance because it was a big thrill for us to see this all-black orchestra and go and listen to them play music. So we went there, and we had a good time, and we came back. And then, as I can remember, Hattie, she'd won money at the racetrack, and she was going to close the Harlem so she could redecorate the Harlem Nocturne. No, the Harlem Chicken Inn, I'm sorry. And so the band was going to Lethbridge. So a friend of mine and I, we went to Lethbridge with the band, and that's where Ernie and I got married. And we came back to Calgary. And then after that, I came home. It was Christmas time, so I came home to spend Christmas with my family before going to Vancouver. And he didn't come out to the farm. He stayed in Calgary for about 3 weeks. And then I had a letter from him to, don't come to Calgary. I'm back to Vancouver. He says, it's too cold here. So he sent me a ticket, and I took the train to Vancouver, and that was in 1949. Because I got married in 48, and then in 1949 we went out to Vancouver. And that's I worked there, and I worked for another restaurant. His name was Soldier Williams. He had a restaurant, so I went over there and I worked for him for a while until I had my son. And then I know what it was. We had a business called the Kingsway. We used to call it the Kingsway Cleaners. And I worked there, and then after that, Ernie still had a band, but he would just work on the sidelines. On the side, he would work during the day and work on the side. And then he bought himself a truck, and he worked as he demolished houses. He always worked for himself. He wouldn't work for anyone else. And then after that, he sold a trucking business, and he opened the Harlem Nocturne in Vancouver. And we had that for 11 years. And I helped him there. I worked there. I used to dance in the chorus line. We had a line of girls working there. And I helped in the kitchen and worked on the cash. And very busy life. So,
When was your daughter born?
well, my son first.
Okay.
I had a son his name is Raymond. And Raymond was born on, oh Lord, 19, oh gosh, isn't that terrible? I can't even remember. But anyway, I have a son. And then my daughter was born 11 years later. She was born in 1961, I guess. Yeah, she was born in 61, September. But geez, isn't that silly? I can't remember my son's when he was born. He was born in the 50s because he's 11 years older than she is.
What was his occupation?
Which one?
Raymond.
Raymond? Well, Raymond, he's a real estate appraiser.
And Lavina?
Lavina was ever since she was a little girl, was able to walk. By that time, we had TV. And every time she would be a little kid on the floor, crawling around, and she would hear music, and she would just start clapping her hands. And when she got so she could walk, well, she would jump up and she would start dancing and singing in front of the TV. And then after she started to school, she was always singing. So I thought, well, geez, maybe I should give her voice lessons. So I did. And she just went on from there. She started singing, but her first job, she worked at the Royal Bank of Canada. And then she kept on with her singing lessons, and she enjoyed it so much till she quit the job with the bank and started singing with this group in Vancouver, and then she's just gone from there. That's all she's ever done is sing. So that's... Anything else?
Yes. How would you describe your parents?
My parents were very loving, and Mother was a very strong woman. She had to be to raise 6 kids, because I wouldn't want to do it. And we were all well disciplined. And we all grew up to be good. I would say we are a good family, very loving. We all get along. We enjoy each other's company. That's why I'm here today. Every year I come up to try to visit them, or they come to visit me out in Vancouver. And when we all get together, we just enjoy each other so much. We have fun. And I've got friends in Vancouver. One year I was up here, and they said, what did you do on your holidays? I says, I went to visit my family. They says, how many is in your family? I said, oh, there's 5 girls and 2 boys. And she says to me, my goodness, she says, do you all get along? I says, oh, we have a great time together. So I enjoy my family, and my parents, I think they were very good, and I appreciate them. Now that I've grown up, I thought it was very, we had to work hard on the farm. I've picked every kind of berry there is to be picked. And we had a huge gardens and grew all of our own vegetables and everything. So, and I've rode horseback. I used to ride horseback when I was a child. But I think I had a good childhood. Now that I look back over my life and look at the children, the way they're raised today, I think ours was really good. And she taught us to be honest and work hard and love one another, and that has stuck with me all my life.
Can you describe the fall work after planting the gardens and they had matured, and then of course bringing in the produce and preserving it for the winter?
Oh boy. I can remember one summer, we were all home for the summer to visit our parents, my oldest sister and I, and my two younger sisters, Yvonne, Myrna, and Joyce, they were still home. So we had this huge garden. So Mom, she had us all lined up like it was like a assembly line. Some would get the peas, pick the peas. Some would shell the peas, and, and some would wash the jars, and some would put them in the jars. And we were going all day, and then we would get the potatoes in, and but it was fun. And we would tease our mother and say, "Gee, Mom, you're really organized. This is like an assembly line." And then after that, before that, we used to help Dad clear the fields, the land, and pull roots. And I hated that. And pick rocks off the field where he would, but I can understand now, we had to help him, and I appreciate that. But I wouldn't want to do it now for myself, and I think that's why I left home so early, because the work was so hard. And the winters were cold. Oh, Lord. I can remember walking on snowdrifts 6 feet high. But it doesn't snow like that up there now. And we had to walk to school. We were dressed in woolen stockings, and we had to cover our face to keep warm. Just our eyes would be out. But now, they tell me it's not that cold up here, but I don't know.
How would you describe your father?
Dad, I think he was a great father. He was very passive, I guess, because Mom wore the strings, but he was always good to us, and he always taught us right from wrong, and he was kind. He never did give us a spanking at all. Mom was the one that would spank us if we were wrong. Because I remember my dad, he was babysitting my sister and I did something wrong. Anyway, he put me across his knee, and he was spanking me. And I reached down and grabbed a stick off the floor, and I was hitting him with the stick. And he didn't, he was just a really kind man, and he helped everybody out there. And he knew how to do things. He could fix any of his farm machinery. And in the fall, when they thrashed the crops, I can remember the whole community would get together and do one farmer's crop when it was ready to be thrashed, they called it. And all the ladies, they would all gather up at that person's house and help cook and feed these men, because they had to fix 3 meals a day, breakfast, dinner, and supper. And it was all farm grown, and they just worked together and helped everybody. And that's how they got along out there in Amber Valley. But I think it was a good community, because we used to have programs at school, and Velma, going back there, she put on one of the most beautiful concerts that we'd ever seen up there on the farm in Amber Valley at the school, at Toll School. That was the name of our school. And I remember they taught us this slogan. They would say, because we would go to other schools and play sports, and our slogan was, we would say, "Ripsaw, ripsaw, ripsaw, bang. We belong to the Toll School gang. We don't quarrel, we don't fight." And we'd raise our hand and say, "We're from Toll School, we're all right." I'll never forget that one. I thought it was great when I think about it,
Where did they get that name for Toll School?
I'm not sure, but I think Mrs. Cromwell, I think they named him after a man up there named Mr. Tolles. Now, whether that was on his land or why they did it, I don't know. But anyway, they had a meeting and they agreed to name it Toll School.
What part did church or religion play in your upbringing?
Well, when I was growing up, it played a great part. But after I grew up to think for myself, I have my own ideas about religion. But oh boy, they were hellfire and brimstone preachers. I would go to church and I would come home so afraid. I was afraid to go to bed. I was afraid I was going to die and go to hell. But they were good. And the singing, oh, I love the singing because the Risbys, and they used to come up there from Campsie, and they used to preach up there. And it was good. There was good singing in there. And my mother she loved church. She was a beautiful singer. And I think that's where my daughter gets her voice today, from my mother. And that's why she loves to sing. And I can remember when we were kids and we used to walk to church. And we would be about a quarter of a mile from the church, and you could hear my mom's voice, and the kids would say, "Oh, I know Miss Delbourne is there. We can hear her singing." It was so loud and clear. She just had a beautiful voice.
During your employment prior to marriage, you did domestic work and you did restaurant work.
Restaurant work.
Did you apply for anything other than that?
Yes, we did, but it didn't do any good because they wouldn't hire us because we were black kids,
Okay.
And then we didn't have proper education to work in to do office work.
Do you remember when Ruth Ada Heslop
Oh, sure.
got a job?
Cousin, yeah.
How did you feel when you heard that she had been able to secure a job in an office as opposed to working at domestic jobs?
Oh, I was very proud because we're first cousins, and she made headlines in the newspaper. She was one of the first blacks in Edmonton to have an office job. But see, they lived in the city, and they could stay home and go to school, whereas we couldn't. And not being used to going to other schools or mixing with an all-white school, I know I was very intimidated by the other students, because where I went to school, it was all black children went to school. And then all of a sudden I leave there and go to an all-white high school. Well, I was shy at that time, whereas now I wouldn't be because I'm used to it. I can remember when I was a kid, my mother would send me to the store, which this lady named Mrs. Coleman, she had a store, and so she would send me to the store to buy some sugar or something. And I would see a car coming, and I would run and hide behind the bushes. Because I was afraid. And then another part of my life, I remember, like I had to go to Edmonton to have my teeth fixed. And my dad sent me over there to stay with my aunt. Oh gosh, I wasn't even in school then. And so there was a streetcar coming. And there was all white people on the streetcar. And I says her name was Mary, and I says, "Aunt Mary," I says, "I can't get on that streetcar with all those white folks." She says, "I'm sorry, honey, they don't have a streetcar for black folks." I know she laughed. I can hear her now, just the way she said it. She says, "I'm sorry, honey, we got to ride this streetcar." Oh, it's so funny now when you think about it, how I don't know what you call it, ignorant, I guess we were, or just afraid. Kids are afraid. And I can understand children now that are afraid when they're small, But at that time, I just told her like it was.
Well, when your cousins came from the city to visit you, how did you feel?
We loved it, and they loved it out there with us. They would love to come out and visit, because they weren't used to being around a lot of black children either. And then we were all related, and a lot of kids used to come out there every summer and come and spend the summer holidays, and then they would go back to the city.
Now, you mentioned that the school you went to was all black. There were one or two white kids attending the school?
Oh yeah, there was I can remember there was the Weebs, the Marniers, and the Ungers. Now that's three, and the Silkies. They went to school up there.
And your main source of entertainment during your childhood would have been what?
Well, going to church and school programs that we had at school. And we used to do plays. And in the summertime with sports, we used to play baseball, and we used to play hockey at school. They made us a hockey rink. And we used to play games in the wintertime called snowball. We'd build us a fort and and get behind it and pile it up with snowballs, and then we would just throw them at one another, because we didn't have a lot of skates and things like the kids have now. But we didn't have skates. We just played hockey. And what else did we do? In baseball, we had a baseball team, and our school used to go from one town to another, like Prosperity. We would go to Boyle and Collington, and they used to come down and play us. And oh yeah, they had dances up there, and the music was a lot of hold down country and western music. I can remember the first dance I went to. I was only 13, and I went with my aunt. My Aunt Helen. She took me to this dance, and oh boy, I had so much fun. The people would come and dance with the kids, and have fun, yeah. But it was quite active, and in the summertime they used to have picnics, and all home grown vegetables and baking. It was great. Homemade ice cream. We made our own ice cream. Everything. We made everything.
What message would you have for young blacks today?
The message I have is to get a good education and do a lot of reading and research and follow your dreams.
Are you pleased with the goals that your children have attained?
Well, yes, I am, because they didn't cause me any problems. My children, I never had any problems with them at all. And I'm very pleased with, Raymond, he's not pleased with himself because he feels that he should have accomplished more in his life. But Lavina, she's quite happy with her life now. And she's always wanted to sing, and she's made her living singing. And she's been singing since she was 18 years old. And as long as they're happy with their lives, I'm happy. And they've never caused me any trouble at all. Well, I just always liked music, and I always wanted to. There was a family called the Turner family, and they used to come down to Amber Valley to our programs, and they used to sing together. And I used to think, geez, if I could sing and play the guitar like that, So one of the Turner girls and we became great friends, and I used to go up to their place a lot, and her brothers, they would teach me to chord on the guitar. So I learned a few chords and we would sing. So after I left home and started to work on my own, that's the first thing I bought was myself a guitar. But I didn't take lessons because I never had time. But, and then after I met Ernie, well, I think that's what attracted me to him was the music. And I just always liked music. And I still do to this day. I'd rather dance than eat. I just love dancing and singing and music because it makes you feel happy. And I was, at one stage in my life, I was kind of depressed. And this doctor, he knew that I was depressed. And he says, well, you're musical. He says, why don't you go and learn how to play something? He says, you're not too old. So I took lessons in Vancouver, I could strum a guitar, but I've never made a success of it, but I enjoyed doing it. So I came up here to my sister's 25th or 50th wedding anniversary. And my sister Myrna, she asked me to bring my guitar and sing. So I did. But I was so darn nervous, but I got through it. And then I did a few things in Vancouver, playing music. Oh yeah, and I used to dance. I was a solo dancer for a while. And I can remember people from Amber Valley came out there, and I was dancing in a group. And they knew my parents were very religious. So I can remember my aunt saying, God, I wouldn't like Reese and Liddell to see Marcy up there dancing like that. I thought that was so funny, you know. But they didn't say anything. They didn't care. If we were happy doing what we did, as long as we stayed out of trouble, they seemed to be happy. But they never did. Mom and Dad came to the Harlem. No, they didn't come to the Harlem. They came out to Vancouver, but she would stay with my children while I went to work.
As a child, then, you aspired to become an entertainer?
Well, after I hadn't thought about it much then, but after I grew up and went to, I used to go to the exhibition, they call it here. And I used to go to these Harlem and Havana shows they used to have. And I used to see the girls up there dancing. And I thought to myself, gee, I says, is that what they do? And they can make a living at that? And I thought, well, geez, I can do that. So I thought I would try it. So my first attempt to start dancing was with Leonard Gibson. He had a dance group in Vancouver, and I used to go there and learn how to dance because we were just kids. And so he taught me a few things. So I just combined what I learned and what I learned from him and watching others, and I just started dancing on my own. And I did that for I danced around Vancouver for at least 10 or 15 years.
And so what was the music scene like in Vancouver? You said you arrived there in 49, 50? And
yeah, it was good. They had nightclubs. Yeah, they had, let's see, there was the Cave, the Palomar, and there was the, oh gosh, I forget the other, there was some club, oh yeah, there was 3 clubs down in the East End, and the first club I ever danced in was a club called the, oh geez, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was ran by a man named Charlie Nelson, and he hired me to dance. And then after that, I used to dance in all the clubs in Vancouver, but never up in the uptown clubs. Mm-hmm. But we used to get jobs doing parties and that, dancing. And they always had an orchestra there, or somebody to accompany it.
So you danced mainly to live
music.
Yeah,
live music, yeah. There was no such thing as recordings in those days. It was all live music. And then I used to watch all the big entertainers when they come to Vancouver. I've seen, he's dead now, Sammy Davis Jr. I have a picture I had taken with Sammy Davis Jr. And Ella Fitzgerald, I seen her in person. And who else? Oh, a lot of entertainers. We used to go see them all, and I seen, oh gosh, what is his name? Oh, Nat King Cole, and who else? Oh, a lot of entertainers. We used to take them all in, because it wasn't expensive in those days. Louis Jordan, I seen him, and that's who Ernie, he patterned. In the later years, he patterned his band after Louis Jordan and the Timpani Five. He used to play a lot of Louis Jordan's music, and with his band. And let me see who else now. But that's how I became really interested in music. I guess I in the back of my mind, I was always musically inclined, but I never had a chance to do it because we couldn't afford to send us to any music at all. The only one in our family that took music lessons is my brother Winford, and that was after I had gone.
So basically, you weren't exposed to any type of music other than church music during your childhood?
And
at
country
home?
and western singing. Yeah, because we used to listen to that on the radio, country and western singers on the radio, and cowboys, and my favorite cowboy singer was Roy Rogers. And when I left home, we used to go to it was a theater called the Gym Theater. I forget where it was. It was just off, gosh, I can't think of the name of that street. It's changed. So on our day off, we would go to a movie, and if Roy Rogers and Dale Evans weren't playing there, we wouldn't go. But I was a fan of Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. And we grew up on cowboy music,
Yeah.
What else? Do you have any other questions?
Well, I'm really intrigued about this music scene because I think you have a piece of living history with that scene on the West Coast that's quite unique. I mean, you have a story there. Like, how did you see it change? You said you've been there for different clubs and dancing in different clubs and then actually owning a club yourself. Like, how did you see the music change evolve?
How did I see it evolve when the, first there was a lot of jazz, and then there was rhythm and blues, and then, and I grew up, that's when I grew up, in the rhythm and blues era. And jazz, there was a lot of good jazz band like Duke Ellington and that. But since then, still my favorite music is rhythm and blues. All the music now that they have, like all this hip hop. It's not in my era, but in my era there was jazz, good jazz music, and rhythm and blues. And oh yeah, the bebop scene. That's where Ernie used to try to play a lot of bebop, but he found out that it didn't go over so well, so he stuck to the Louis Jordan type of music, because people like that. And until the end, that's what he played. He had a band. When he retired, he used to he used to do a lot of playing around the city for weddings and things. And they've still, since he's been gone, they still phoned the house, and I said, I'm sorry, he's deceased, and they didn't know.
So he played music well into his 80s.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, he died when he was 85. But up until then, before he got sick, he was still playing. Even after he retired from the trucking business we had, after we sold the Harlem, he went into demolition. And after that, he sold the demolition business, and we went into what they call, like we would go and strip out buildings. it was called, we did it strip outs. And we used to go into malls if they were going to redecorate the malls. Well, we used to go in there and just strip it all out, and that was it. And after that, well, if he had a gig to play on a weekend, he'd go and play it. He still had it as a sideline, but it wasn't his main job. So as far as I'm concerned, he was a real entrepreneur, because he always worked on his own. He always had his own. He wouldn't work for anybody else. So I think I've had a rather, it hasn't been boring, I'll say that. My life hasn't been boring. And I think it's because of music that it hasn't been. I wasn't just a regular, what they call, stay-at-home mom or anything. There's always, ever since I left home, there's always been music in my life. And now my daughter, I go with her a lot on the boats. And sometimes she has her own show on the boats. And the last one I went on, she says, Mom, I want you to come. When I do this act, she does this Tina Turner act. And so she says, I want you to come and dance with me. So I thought, oh gosh. I said, no. She says, oh, come on. She said, it's just fun. So my granddaughter and we went up to dance with her. And so it was like 3 generations, you see, of dancing. And so it was fun. The people just, oh boy. They liked it, and they were shaking hands, and they says, you must be in good condition to be able to do that. But it was good shape to be able to do that, keep up with those young people, Of course, I was much slimmer than I was. But it's always been, to me, dancing is fun, and I think that's the way life should be. If you enjoy doing something, do it, and follow your dream. Mm-hmm. Whether it's singing or reading or whatever, just enjoy your life. Life is to be enjoyed. And I think this is why I am the way today. The minute I hear some music, boy, people say, there goes Marcy. So it's just, that's my life. It's been, after I left home, I've sort of enjoyed it, and I still do,
So your message to young people is follow your dream.
Follow your dream, and nowadays, to me, children, they have so many more opportunities than we have. I watch these shows on TV, and they can be whatever they want to be. But see, in my day, it wasn't like that. And just, if you see something you want to do, well, you work at it and just keep doing it. Just like if you're in photography, that's what you like doing. And I can imagine it's very exciting. And interview people, I think it's wonderful. And I think this is what young people should do. And don't sit around and say you can't do this and can't do that. Because if you try, you can do it. And you can succeed at it if you want to. Because I think Ernie, my husband, he always had his own business. And he didn't do business with black people. He did business with Italians and anybody. And the Italians were really a big part of his business, his demolition and everything. They loved him. And when we had, well, you were at his memorial, and there was about 700 people there. And he did plays. He did all sorts of things, which was very interesting. And I think if you use the good sense that God gave you, just follow your dream and try to make a life for yourself, because it's out there now and it's much easier than when I came along. And I'm just a little farm girl. And I'm proud to be from Amber Valley. I always say to people, they say, well, where were you born? Where were you raised? I says, I'm a little farm. I was a little farm girl from Amber Valley, and I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee. I just love that song. And have a good sense of humor about life, because to me life is very humorous if you look at it, you know.
Amen.
well, well, this is the way I feel.
And you should be very candid.
Oh, you're a natural.
Yeah, but it's nice, you know. It's fun. And I just told you how I was born. Oh, the year I was born, and so you can figure that out. You can figure my age out. But I'm happy. I'm proud of my age. I'm just happy to be here and still able to walk and be
dance.
interviewed and dance. Oh, geez, I love dancing.
So you mentioned that you and your daughter were doing something together, and I understand you have. She's on the cover of one of the newspapers.
Oh, yes.
Maybe you could hold it up for us.
She's been, and the first show she was ever in was in Ain't Misbehaving. And that ran for 8 years in Vancouver.
8 years?
And what was that? They Ain't Misbehaving, that was a cabaret or a...
Yeah, it was, what was that? Fats Waller?
Yeah, the old
From that song, Fats Waller. She was in there for 8 years. And then she left that. And then she went on to do another show in the States called this one here, Ragtime. She played the lead role in this one for years. She has her own act by herself now. She works on cruise ships.
It was always fun.
Oh yeah, it's fun. I like it. And I get to go on a lot of cruises. After she introduced me to the audience, so naturally I stood up and took a bow and everything. And so when they found out that I was her mother, when she finished her show, there was this gentleman, he was from Texas, and he came over to me and he says, "You sure make some pretty babies." And he said, "I got every record that Patsy Cline ever made, but she does those songs better than Patsy Cline," he said. Oh yeah, I'm very popular on the ship because after she does her show, then they know who I am. I get all kinds of handshakes and everything. So naturally, I stick my chest out.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I'm a very happy person. I've enjoyed. I have to say, I enjoyed my childhood, even though we had to work hard and did milk cows, clean out the chicken houses and the barns, and I rode horseback, played baseball. I used to play first baseman at school. At school, I played first base, and then my married life. It's had its ups and downs, but that's life.
Mm-hmm.
No, but nothing's perfect. But anyhow, we stuck it out. And I'm still going strong.
Right on.
That's your family.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is our family. Mom and Dad and all their little siblings.
You must be in that picture too.
Sure, she's here.
Front row?
This is her here.
Oh,
Oh, there. Oh yeah, that's the day my brother got married, I guess, isn't it? We were all together.
nice.
And we still enjoy each other when we get together.
This is the home where we were born. This is our
Oh.
home in Amber Valley. I've got a larger picture.
Yeah, this is it, where we were all born in this house. A midwife. No doctors. Oh, Lord.
back of my back. Try the transportation on the back of a hack. I love to hear the rhythm of the clickety clack.